I don't know about you, but it feels like my entire life today is nothing more than me moving from one charger to another charger with all my different laptops and mobile devices and everything else. So what I want to talk about in this episode is power management. Power management basically means to make your device use less power in one way or another. Now, power management's been around for a long time. The original standard, Advanced Power Management, or APM, dates from the early 90s. It was quickly replaced with a much more advanced standard called Advanced Configuration and Power Interface, better known as ACPI, which is what we use and love to this day. You'll hear the term APM and it is listed as an objective on the A+, but it's really, we live and have lived for decades in an ACPI world. So, with that understanding in mind, the first thing I want to do is talk about what does power management mean. Now, if you have a Intel-based system, it's going to have power management built into the CPU itself. So you have power management. Now the trick is how do you turn it on? Well, back in the old days, you would actually go into your BIOS and you would say turn on ACPI and that type of thing. That's pretty much disappeared today because on pretty much all systems, I'm sure there's an exception out there somewhere, the moment you boot the system up, it's going to be on in terms of ACPI. And this is true also for Linux boxes, this is true for Apple machines, everybody is on from the moment you boot the computer up. Now, just because it's on, that doesn't mean you're using it. When you say ACPI is on, that means it's ready to do stuff, but you've got to set it up to do that. So we have these different states. So on is one state, on but not doing anything. The next one would be, let's start turning some stuff off. So the next state would be where you selectively turn off devices, shutting down your monitor, shutting down your hard drive, that type of thing. The next state after that is going to be called sleep in Windows language. Sometimes you'll hear the term standby. In that situation, what's taking place, and it's important you get this, is that you've got your RAM and you've got all your running programs in RAM. When you go into a sleep mode, what you're doing is you are keeping everything in RAM, you're just giving it a little bit of a trickle charge so it stays there, but everything else is shut off, and that's a sleep mode. Sleep is great, but the one downside to it is that you're still powering RAM. So the last ACPI level is what we call hibernate. In a hibernate mode, what you do is you take the contents of the RAM and you copy it to a file on your hard drive, and then you pretty much shut everything off. So hibernate is the deepest mode. So it takes longer to get out of a hibernate mode than it does to get out of a sleep mode. So I want you to think about this for a minute. With sleep mode, we keep the RAM alive. And with hibernate, we copy everything off the RAM and put it on the hard drive. Because starting with Windows Vista, we have, it's not really another mode, it's kind of a Windows thing called hybrid mode. In hybrid mode, what happens is that we go ahead and we keep RAM cooking, but we still make a copy. So it's kind of halfway between hibernate and sleep. And you would say to yourself, Mike, why would Windows do something like that? Well, the answer is actually very simple. When you're in a hybrid mode, if you go down, you don't lose everything. One of the great problems of sleep mode is that you're still running your RAM. So if your battery eventually dies or your power goes out or whatever it might be, you've lost everything. Hybrid mode simply says, listen, I'm going to go ahead and make a copy just like hibernate, but we'll go ahead and treat it like a regular sleep mode. So you have these different modes. Make sure for the exam you're familiar with the difference between sleep versus hibernate versus hybrid mode. And it just happens to be with who's running in RAM and who's running on the hard drive. Okay, so we've got a lot of complex issues when it comes to power management. For example, do I want to turn off my monitor after a certain amount of time? Do I want to turn off my hard drive after a certain amount of time? How do I want to go into sleep mode? Do I want to go into hibernate mode? Your buttons can control all this. Closing the lid can control all this. So setting up one machine for power management can get a little bit complicated. So Microsoft uses something called power plans. Now, I want to warn you right now, I'm doing this in Windows 10. However, if you take a look at Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10, they all have this power options button in the control panel. So, and they all look virtually identical. So let's go ahead, and even though we're doing it in 10, if you saw an A+ question on Windows 7 or whatever, it would still work the same way. All right, so let's take a look and let's show what types of power plans we have by default. So right now you'll see I have exactly 2 plans, but there's a little tab I can hit here and it'll say show additional plans. So I have 3 plans by default. Power Saver, which, as you can imagine, shuts down everything fast, puts me into sleep mode quickly. High Performance, which barely ever turns off anything. I think it turns off the monitor. And then Balanced, which is Microsoft's opinion of what's the best way to do stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of these. So first of all, what you can do is you can click all these little buttons on the left, but really all you're doing is you are messing with your current power plan. Right now, I am set to High Performance. Do you see that? So if I want to really change, I mean, every little tiny issue, I can click right here on Change Plan Settings. And now you'll see it says either on battery or plugged in. So I turn off my display on battery, put the computer to sleep, never. And then when it's plugged in, it just stays wide open all the time. But if you look right here where it says Advanced Power Settings, this shows the super detailed settings. Now, I am not going to go into great detail on this. The A+ isn't either. But I do want to bring up a few high points in here for you to be aware of. Now, let's take a look. Let's look under Sleep for starters. Do you see where it says Allow Hybrid Sleep? Now, in Windows 10, by interesting coincidence, it's turned off. But it's only turned off for laptops. In Windows, if you have a desktop system, hybrid is on by default. On laptops, it's off by default. And the reason for that's actually fascinating. The reason they turn off hybrid is because when you go into sleep mode, it doesn't take that long because you're not copying the contents of RAM over to your hard drive. Hybrid mode, as you remember, copies the contents. So a lot of people who use laptops, they're just closing the lid and they're throwing it in their bag and they're going. And the laptop manufacturers went to Microsoft and said, Microsoft, turning on hybrid mode for a laptop's a bad idea, because the last thing you want to be doing when you're shutting down your system and throwing it in a bag is that all of a sudden it starts writing to the hard drive. So on a laptop, it's always turned off. Now, I could turn it on if I want to, and this is where that's done. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to set on your system. You're the one who's going to be comfortable with this. Make sure for A+ that you're just aware of these types of settings. So here's our Hibernate. Now, Hibernate is becoming unpopular in Windows. In Linux, you'll still see it, and in Apple, it's not that popular anymore, simply because hybrid states have become more and more popular. Because if you have a hybrid sleep and you lose your power, you've already got a Hibernate by definition, because you've already written everything to RAM. Okay, now there's a few others I want to set, but I want to do them a little bit more the old-fashioned way. And it's looking right here from the left. For example, when to turn off the display. So we saw that one earlier. That one's easy. Choose what closing the lid does. So on my particular system, when I close the lid, it's going to go to sleep. When I press the sleep button, my laptop does have a little sleep button right here I can press. And then when I press the power button, what do I want it to do? I don't like hibernate mode. That's just a personal preference of mine on my laptop. So you can see that I've got that all turned off at the moment. All right, the last thing I want to do in here is we're going to set up our own power plan. So let's go to create a power plan. Now, it's going to start with the 3 built-in plans. So I'm going to start with high performance. And I'm going to call it Mike's Plan. So here I can set all my basic settings right here, and that'll create the plan. But now if I really want to tweak this thing up, I can go into the manual settings and make any type of change that I want to do. So this is actually pretty powerful, and power management works beautifully within the Windows environment. Now, keep in mind that both Linux and OS X also have very, very similar settings, and it works just as well there too. However, we're pretty sure that CompTIA is going to be concentrating on Windows in this particular example. The one other thing I want to show you is something that happens a lot with people who play with computers, and they go into their BIOS and they see power management settings. Most of the power management settings that you see in your system, on your BIOS itself, are ignored by the operating system. The operating systems themselves will go in and do whatever they need to do. However, there's one big exception to that, and that are features where outside influence is going to turn your machine back on. For example, wake on LAN. Wake on LAN simply means if somebody's sending this computer some information, or if he's detecting LAN activity, wake up so he can actually process it. So when it comes to stuff like that, you're usually going to have to configure the devices themselves. So for example, with Wake on LAN, you're going to have to configure the network card. Most of the time, with systems having built-in network cards, you're going to your BIOS to turn on or turn off Wake on LAN. Now, there are some more advanced network cards that you'll see on some desktop systems where you can actually go into Device Manager, go into the properties for the NIC, go to Advanced, and you can usually see a setting in there. But most of the time, if you're going to be setting stuff like Wake on LAN up, you're going to be going into BIOS itself. So let me go ahead and we're going to bring this guy up and let me show you some BIOS settings that you might see on a typical system. So here I am in my BIOS on this system. Now, a few of these things hopefully will look kind of interesting to you. Number one, do you see where it says resume by alarm? I can actually have the system boot up by date and time if I want to. My other option here isn't even on power management. I gotta go over here. Here's Wake on LAN. If I want this system to be able to wake on LAN, I'm gonna have to come in here in the BIOS to actually make that happen. Now you realize I skipped a lot of settings there. What you're seeing are more advanced type settings that are often unique to a particular motherboard. Let me just give you a quick tour of what a few of these are. So for example, what we have here, this is AC back. This feature right here, if my power goes out, it will not automatically restart the computer. Power on by keyboard. Now this is disabled because Windows does this just fine, but that you do have that feature in here. Same as with power on by mouse. That feature I have disabled because I'm just going to let Windows take care of it. And then way down here at the bottom, you're going to see special settings that are really unique to this motherboard itself. These are features that are way beyond the standard ACPI standard that this particular BIOS manufacturer thinks is really cool. So the one thing to remember about going into BIOS is that when it comes to power management, unless you're doing something crazy like having your computer wake up at a certain time of day or wake on LAN, you're not going to be going in there unless you want to play with these advanced options. And by the way, don't be afraid to play with these advanced options. If they're of interest to you, check them out. They're kind of fun and interesting. Okay, well, with that understanding in mind, that's pretty much what I want to cover in power management. For the exam, make sure you're comfortable with the difference between sleep versus hibernate versus hybrid mode, because you know why? It's going to be on the exam.